Hello, I hope this video finds you doing well today. Today we're going to be continuing our ongoing exploration of the pipe organ by taking a look at the different families of pipes that allow the organ to produce the wide variety of sounds that it does. So when we're looking at the different timbres of sound, we've already talked about in our previous video how the length of the pipe determines the pitch. However, each rank of pipes is a little bit different in design within an organ. They can be made of different materials, the pipes can be cut in different ways, and depending on the type of pipe, the way that the air passes through the pipe and produces sound can vary depending on the type of pipe it is. One thing that helps us as organists be able to keep straight what kind of pipes we're working with is by having an understanding of the different families of pipes, and which gives us a good understanding, kind of basic understanding of what we would expect to get from that particular rank of pipe. This is what we're going to be exploring today in today's topic. To begin our discussion, we will first look at the two largest families of pipes, the first major subdivision between the different types of pipes that we can see in a pipe organ. The first family would be the flute pipes. Flute pipes are very similar to a flute in that they produce their tone by the air passing through the pipe and out of the mouth of the pipe itself. These pipes can either be made out of wood or metal, and the metallurgy or the wood composition helps to determine the specific timbre of these pipes. The other major family are reed pipes, which produce sound when the air passes through the pipe and across a metal reed that resonates. And this air passing across the reed is what produces the tone. This is very similar to the idea of like a clarinet or saxophone. Now that we have the understanding of the two largest families, we're going to go in a little bit more detail on the flute pipes, because this family can actually be further subdivided into 5 different subcategories that each have their own unique nature to them. So the first subcategory that we're going to be looking at is the principal pipes. Principal pipes are known for having both in their tone a very strong foundational quality, but also a very strong incisive quality. These are the pipes that very much make up the foundation of the organ, as the name implies with the name of principal. These kind of pipes are usually found in organs of almost any size, from the smallest to the largest, and is probably the most quintessential sound that we're probably used to hearing when we think of an organ sound. Now, to demonstrate this, I will play a stanza out of the hymn, Praise to the Lord the Almighty. I will first start off with just a single 8-foot principal to introduce the first phrase of it. Then I will add a 16-foot and 8-foot principal in the pedal on the second phrase. And then in the third phrase, adding the 4-foot principal, and then finally a 2-foot principal, to be able to demonstrate not only what a principal sound is by itself, but also to show the build up in the sound that is very common when we add those additional octaves on there to create what we would describe as a principal chorus. Now the next family that we have are the flute stops. Just to clarify, this is flute as opposed to flue stops. Flute stops are in ways similar to the principals, but instead of having both a foundational tone and an incisive tone, flute stops are typically a little bit softer and focus mainly on the foundational tone. They usually are a little bit rounder in sound. They're softer, they're gentler. They can be loud in volume, but usually they have that kind of softer, gentler texture in them. These can be used either for quieter, more gentle passages of music. They can be used in solo as a solo function, depending on what they're backed up with, to kind of create a nice, beautiful melody. To demonstrate flute tone now, I will be doing very similar to what I just did with the principal tones, only we'll be using the flute, starting with the 8-foot flute for the first phrase, adding 16 and 8-foot flutes for the second phrase in the pedal, and then finally adding the 4 and 2-foot flutes in the third and fourth phrases. Now the next subdivision within the flute stops are the strings. Now strings are still a pipe, even though it is a wind-blown pipe, even though it goes by the name of strings, but they're given this name because their sound is very evocative of a string orchestra. This is because these pipes contain more of the incisive tones and less of the foundation, which allows them to have a little bit more of a brighter characteristic and are often very useful for various accompaniments or to kind of create a nice, almost ethereal bass line within a piece of music. Now, in the case with our organ at First Methodist, it does not have a true string tone. It has what's called a Gibbs horn, which is a stop which is a hybrid between a flute and a string. So the tone you're going to hear when we play our example is a little bit different from what would be the traditional string. But the reason for this is that string tones and string pipes really came more into favor in the late 19th century and early 20th century with the Romantic and symphonic organ building styles. As our instrument at First Methodist is more built in the neo-Baroque style, that is imitating more of the instruments of the mid to early 18th century, these type of sounds and stops were not as popular then. So our instrument actually only has one string stop, and even then it's a hybrid version of a string stop. One other thing that is often seen with string stops is the idea of a celeste. This is a separate rank of pipes that is intentionally intended to be played against another rank, in this case a string, and is actually intentionally tuned just slightly sharp from the other rank. The idea is to actually create a little bit of an undulation in the tone, which gives both ranks together this very nice ethereal sound. Again, kind of similar to being used in the strings, can be very nice for a nice support, or just kind of to give an ethereal feel. To demonstrate this, we're going to hear a short excerpt from one of the pieces out of César Franck's Les Organistes. We will first be starting with just the Gibbs horn by itself, so you can get an idea of kind of that string tone without anything else to it. And then halfway through, I will add the celeste, so you can hear the ethereal sound that helps add to. This will conclude today's discussion on the different families of pipes. We still have a few more families to cover. Specifically within the flutes, we will be looking at mutations and mixtures, which are special types of pipes that really don't stand on their own but are to be used with other different ranks of pipes, and then exploring the reed pipes. This will be something that we'll be looking at doing in our next episode, so I hope that you will join us for that, and when we will continue our discussion. Thanks and have a blessed day.